My beloved child, do not rush past this. A call is ringing out from heaven, and it is meant for you alone. If you refuse to pick up, it is not only the conversation that will be cut off, the peace over the home where you live will quietly depart as well. I am calling you, gentle yet urgent. Will you listen? When I, the Lord God, step into your house, everything begins to shift, not with a storm, but with a quiet trembling that makes stone walls soften. For wherever I am present, nothing remains as it was, not even you yourself. Do you remember the house of Zacchaeus, the despised tax collector, with just one word? Today, I must stay at your house. Every barrier disappeared. There was no sermon, no public miracle, only the Lord entering in. And from that moment, Zacchaeus' heart melted and his home became a place of salvation. For when I come in, the cold must retreat, the darkness must withdraw, and the impossible takes place. My child, I do not need your house to be perfect. I only need a small corner with its door left open. Perhaps today it is cluttered with sorrow, filled with sobs no one hears. Yet if you invite me to come in, even the last breath of your faith can be brought back to life. That house will no longer be just a place to live, but an altar of resurrection. You have thought that I had left because you heard nothing. But have you ever realized that your darkest days are the very time when I am plowing the soil of your soul? My silence is not my absence. It is the pause of a father who is cleansing the dwelling before he enters. If you wait, if you still keep the door open, I will come. Not late, not early, at the very moment you truly need me. So do not miss this moment. Do not slam shut the door of your inner house. There are miracles that do not begin with peals of thunder, but with you clearing a small space in your heart for me to dwell. From today on, I will show you that the things you once thought were random have in fact borne the imprint of my hand, and you will understand when I step into your house. The old no longer has room, and the new will overflow. My child, many like you have mistaken my quietness for abandonment. Yet I have never left. In the long nights without answers, in the bends in the road where you thought you had lost your way, I am at work. I am not always speaking, but I am always doing. I am working behind the curtain when you are exhausted and see nothing moving. I am uprooting what does not belong to you so that your foundation can be rebuilt with living rock, not shifting sand. For if you keep looking only with natural eyes, you will be afraid. But if you look with the eyes of faith, you will see that this house is being rebuilt for something greater. And only when you are willing to open your heart will I be able to open the door. My dear one, what grieves me is not first the darkness covering your life, but that you believe I have left you alone in it. Every time you whisper, God probably doesn't hear. You unknowingly add another layer of door over one already closed. You look at prayers still unanswered, dreams still unfulfilled, and you conclude that my silence means I no longer care. But do you know that the gaps you call delay are in fact the walls I am building to shield you from what would shatter your soul? I do not answer in the way you want, not because I am indifferent, but because I am saving you from the very thing you are pleading with me to give. Many times I have had to let the darkness linger a little longer just so that you would stop, lift your eyes, and realize that without me, you have nowhere else to cling. I want you to remember Joseph, the son sold by his brothers, thrown into a pit and then cast into a dark prison. If you look only with natural sight, you would say, his life was a chain of times when God was silent. There were no angels appearing, no sea parting, no loud miracles. There were only closed doors, false accusations, and long nights in a cell. Yet from that deep pit I was leading Joseph to a throne. From the prison I brought him into the palace. In the midst of the darkness, I was arranging every piece so that on the appointed day, a single dream would be enough to pull him out of his chains. So it is with you. My child, there are prisons in your life that you have called the end. But to me, they are only waiting rooms for the day of glory. The reason you are so weary is not only your circumstances, but the way you misread my silence. You live in a world that loves everything instant. So you want me to reply like a message flashing onto a screen. When I do not answer in a few days, a few months, even a few years, you label me as distant and say I no longer love you. You compare your life with others, see them as more blessed, more quickly helped, and you conclude, perhaps God has overlooked me. So you begin to pull back your prayers, pull back your trust, pull back the moments when you once dared to hope. But my child, I am not an algorithm that shifts by the hour. I am the faithful one, the same yesterday, today, and forever. My silence is not a gap in my love, but a safe space in which you can learn to trust me when you see nothing. Sometimes it is your very wounds that make it hard for you to hear me. You prayed once and felt refused, so your heart built defensive walls. Better not expect too much, or you will only be disappointed again. You began to pray only out of habit so as not to feel far from God. But inside you no longer waited for anything great. You read my word as a routine, no longer as a living letter I wrote just for you. When you hear others speak of miracles, you smile, yet deep down you say to yourself, that is probably not for me. You do not realize that these layers of disappointment are the very garments blocking the light I still shine over your life each day. I see it all, and I do not condemn you. I only long to gently remove each old bandage so that your heart can beat again to the rhythm of faith. My child, I have not come to condemn you for doubting. I have come to take your hand again. I know every sleepless night, every time you turn your face to the wall and sigh. If you are truly there, please do not let me collapse like this anymore. I have heard, even when you speak only with a glance. I understand. I do not wait for you to become strong before I come. I come right into your weakness, so that you may know the strength you are about to receive does not flow from your willpower, but from my hand. From this day on, I invite you to say to me with all honesty, Lord, I do not understand, but I do not want to walk away from you. Just that is enough for me to begin to move mountains and clear a path for you in the dark. I want you to relearn a small habit that will transform the spiritual atmosphere of your life. Pause in the midst of chaos and ask, Lord, what are you doing here? Instead of rushing to say, everything is falling apart. Look more closely, some doors are closing. But are there not also harmful relationships being cut away? Some opportunities are lost. Yet, is it not also the moment you are being drawn away from a path that would wear down your soul? You think you are going backwards. But with me, sometimes stepping back is simply stepping away from a cliff you cannot see. If you are willing to believe that I am still at work, you will start to notice my fingerprints in every detail that once seemed meaningless, and that very awareness will rekindle the flame of faith that has long grown dim. There will come a time when you are astonished to see that what I have done in the dark was not only to change your circumstances, but first of all, to renew you yourself. I do not only want to move the mountains before you, I also want to deal with the hard stones in your heart, your pride, your need to control, your fear of being hurt. When you learn to trust me in silence, you will no longer panic every time life trembles. When a new storm comes, you will no longer cry out, Lord, where are you? But will breathe, I know you are still working. That is when the darkness no longer rules your emotions, but becomes the backdrop for my glory to be revealed. And from within you there will begin to flow a peace your home has never known before. But my child, I do not care only for your heart, I also see the roof under which you live, the heavy rooms, the silent meals, the weary corridors. Darkness is not only in the soul, it slips into the atmosphere where you live, into the words spoken, into the sighs that no one mentions. When you forget that I am at work in the dark, you allow weariness, numbness, and coldness to walk quietly into your home without resistance. I want to lead you from merely knowing that I am working in your heart to recognizing that I also desire to enter your living space and transform the whole house. For when I truly come into your house, not only is the darkness within you driven back, but the very atmosphere in every room will no longer be the same. And that will be what I begin to speak to you about in the next step. Not every dead end in your life is fate or my being hard on you. My little one, some long, weary cycles continue not because heaven's doors are shut, but because your heart is closing itself to the new thing I want to do. You complain, why am I always stuck in the same place? Yet you do not see that your feet are bound by the very things I have asked you many times to release. When you cling to relationships I have warned you about, habits I have touched, choices I have spoken to, you yourself are building invisible walls that block the flow of blessing. I do not force you, but neither will I bless what is quietly destroying your soul. And then you call it heaven not loving me, when in truth it is simply the result of a spiritual resistance you have not wanted to face. You pray and ask me to make a way, yet your hands still clutch the keys to doors I have told you to lock. You say, Lord, set me free. But after you pray, you return to the same old habits, the same conversations, the same places from which I have tried to draw you out again and again. You ask me to lead you into a new season, yet your mind keeps building its nest in old memories, old wounds, and old ways of thinking. That is why your life feels like a car with the accelerator pressed down that still will not move. You are pressing the brakes with your own clinging. Do not be quick to conclude that I am not listening when, in reality, you are asking me to pour new wine into an old wineskin that is not yet ready, until you are willing to let go. Even the blessings I give would only weigh you down instead of setting you free. Remember the people of Israel in the wilderness. I brought them out from under the yoke of slavery in Egypt with signs and wonders. Yet their hearts kept turning back to the old pots of meat. They longed to return to the place where they were beaten, simply because everything there felt familiar. Instead of walking straight into the promised land, they wandered around the desert for 40 years. Not because I did not know the way, but because they would not let go of the mindset of a slave. They resisted me with their nostalgia for the past and their fear of the new. And so the deadlocks in their lives lasted far longer than they needed to. It is the same with you. My child, there are Egypts in your heart, a relationship, an addiction, a way of living that you still cling to, even though it wounds you. Only when you are willing to admit, I no longer want to keep circling this wilderness, will you begin to see the gates of Canaan opening before you. I do not say these things to shame you. I say them so that you will stop punishing yourself. I know that letting go is not easy, especially when you have grown used to seeking temporary comfort in things where I am no longer present. But my child, each time you dare to say no to something I do not bless, you make room for something better to come in. You do not need to understand the whole future. You only need to obey the gentle prompting of my voice in the present. Start with very concrete things, a phone call you know you need to end, a relationship you know it is time to step back from, a habit you know is eating away at your spiritual time. I will not leave you to fight alone when you take that first small step. I will add strength, courage, and peace enough for you not to go back to the old place. Then you will be surprised to realize that as soon as you leave the old table, not only does your heart become lighter, but the atmosphere around you begins to change as well. Rooms that once felt heavy with useless conversations and negative thoughts will start to be cleansed when you no longer allow yourself to be bound to them. Long-standing stalemates will begin to crack, and light will seep in through those tiny fractures. Yet you will also notice something else when you start stepping out of the old. Darkness does not let go easily. It will try to return, especially within your own home. For once you have chosen to rise, the battle will no longer be only within your heart, but will spread into the atmosphere where you live, in the words spoken, the attitudes shown, the relationships around you. That is when you must learn to guard not only each personal decision, but also the spiritual atmosphere of your home, the place where I long to dwell in fullness. My dear child, many times you think you are waiting for me to act, but in truth I am waiting for you to let go. You say, when the Lord opens the door, I will step through. Yet I see clearly that even when the door is open, you still look back for the old things and bind your own feet with the word regret. You do not realize that every time you compromise with something I have already told you to leave, you add another chain to your own life. That resistance is not loud, it is very subtle, ignoring a small nudge in your conscience, trying to justify a wrong choice, telling yourself, just a little more, it will be fine. Accumulated over the years, those just a little more moments become spiritual ropes that pull you back every time you are about to step into something new. I do not want to see you keep jerking backwards like that. So I gently touch the things you are clinging to, not to take everything from you, but to give you back your freedom. I want to remind you of Jonah, the man I called to go to Nineveh, who ran in the opposite direction instead. I did not throw Jonah into the storm. His own running away brought the ship into the violent wind. When Jonah went down to the bottom of the ship to sleep, thinking he had escaped for a while, the storm only grew fiercer, threatening not only to swallow him, but also to destroy the innocent people on board. It was only when Jonah admitted his resistance to my call and was willing to let me throw him onto a new path, even through the belly of a great fish, that the storm finally stopped. My child, there are storms in your life and in the lives of those around you that are not my punishment, but the result of your quiet resistance to my call. I take no pleasure in watching you go through the belly of the fish, but if that is the only road by which your heart will learn to yield, I will still be there with you, even in that dark place, waiting for you to say, Lord, I will run no more. Therefore I invite you not only to ask me to break your deadlocks, but also to let me show you the places where you are unconsciously holding on. Sit quietly before me and ask, Lord, is there anything in me, in my relationships, in my way of living, that you have asked me to release, yet I am still clinging to? When you dare to let me search your heart, you will see that some things you thought were self-protection are actually feeding your fears, and what you called safety has been a spiritual prison binding your soul. You do not have to cut everything off in a single day. You only need to take the first honest step, and I will hold your hand for the rest of the way. I will give you strength to say no in the very places where you have always been weak, and I will give you peace so that you will not go back to seek temporary comfort in old things. Each small act of obedience breaks one more strand of the cords that bind you, and you will feel the deadlock loosening its grip. As you begin to yield to me instead of struggling against me, you will find that not only the pathways of your heart open up, but even the rhythm of your life begins to change. Things that seemed like they would never be resolved will gradually find direction, and doors that appeared tightly shut will suddenly let light seep through tiny cracks. Yet, it is precisely then that you will sense more clearly that the battle has not ended. It has simply shifted to another front, closer, quieter, right within your own house. For when you begin to step out of the old, darkness will not stand by and watch you walk free. It will try to slip back in through heavy atmospheres, careless words, and cold distances between people under the same roof. I want you to understand this not to make you afraid, but to awaken you. The inner deadlock has begun to crack, and now is the time for you to learn to guard not only your own heart but also the space where you live, so that my presence can remain and complete its work in your life. My beloved, many times you complain about battles in your work, in society, in your future, yet you do not realize that the clearest battle is taking place right within your own home. It is no coincidence that there are days when, even before anyone has said a word to one another, the whole house already feels heavy, irritable, and inexplicably tense. It is not by chance that the same arguments keep repeating with the same content, only changing the day and the wording. There are evenings when everyone is holding a phone. The house is silent, yet the atmosphere is filled with a loud coldness. That is not just a bad mood, it is the trace of a spiritual tug of war that you have forgotten to stay awake to. The enemy is not afraid of the brick walls of your house. It is only afraid when, within those walls, there is prayer, thanksgiving, and honor given to my word. The reason that battle keeps pushing deeper is not that I have abandoned you, but that you have left the gates of your home unguarded for too long. Little by little you have replaced the sound of prayer with the noise of movies and shows, words of blessing with complaints and blame, honest conversations with each person absorbed in a separate screen. You call it being too tired to talk, but in reality you are allowing numbness to quietly take over. You think that as long as you avoid shouting matches, your home is peaceful. But true peace is not awkward silence. It is an atmosphere filled with my presence. When you no longer actively invite me into that atmosphere, the leftovers of hurt, resentment, jealousy, and fear will naturally rise up and rule the space in your house. You wonder why you still feel heavy even after praying. But you forget that after you say Amen, you let your home continue to operate under a spirit completely unlike mine. I want to tell you about the house of Obed-Edom, the man who dared to open his doors to receive the Ark of the Covenant into his home, while many others were afraid and kept their distance. When the Ark, the symbol of my presence, was placed in his house, Scripture records that Obed-Edom and all his household were abundantly blessed. There were no showy miracles, no thunder and lightning from heaven. Only this simple reality: I was there, and the atmosphere of that home changed. Every meal, every pathway, every conversation in his house was covered by my presence, to the point that even King David heard the report of that blessing. My child, your home can also become an Obed-Edom house in this generation if you choose to welcome me in truly. Not just with a few religious decorations, but if you leave your house empty without my presence, without prayer, without my word, it will become an open battlefield where darkness comes and goes without even knocking. Therefore, I do not condemn you. I invite you to return to your role as the guardian of the atmosphere of your home. You do not need to become a preacher, nor do you need to organize grand gatherings. I only ask for very small but consistent things: a short prayer before you leave the house, a minute of silence when the whole family bows their heads together, a verse of Scripture read aloud and reflected on as one, a sincere apology instead of clinging to your pride. Each such action is a stone you set back into the spiritual wall around your house. When you choose to speak blessing instead of judgment, you are closing a door to the darkness. When you turn on hymns instead of content that wears down your faith, you are changing the unseen atmosphere that your family is breathing in. And when you kneel alone in your room, perhaps no one sees you, but all of heaven knows there is a small warrior standing in their place to protect this home. And there will come a time when you distinctly feel that the heartbeat of your home is no longer what it used to be. Arguments that once flared up over the smallest things will gradually lose their heat. Old wounds you thought could never be touched will begin to soften. You will see that matters which used to tense everyone up at the mere mention will now become opportunities for people to truly listen to one another. This is not because you have become better in yourself, but because my presence is steadily pushing back the darkness. Yet, my child, at that time you will also recognize something deeper. I do not only want to transform the atmosphere of your home, I am also preparing your whole family for a new move I am about to bring upon the earth. Some will recognize it and remain to the end. Others will give up halfway because they will not guard that presence. And right there, in this small house of yours, I am watching to see who will be willing to stand up and step into the new thing I am about to open for those who know how to honor my appointed time. My child, there are moments in life that will never come around a second time. The hour of movement has come, but not everyone is ready to step into it. Some hear my gentle knock, yet say, maybe tomorrow, until that knocking is drowned out and fades away among so many other noises. Heaven is opening new doors, but only those who remain to the end, persevering in prayer and in obedience, will receive the key of victory. Many begin with great zeal, but stop halfway when they do not yet see results, and they conclude that I am doing nothing. They do not realize that it is precisely in that season when nothing seems to be happening that I am testing the heart, separating those who walk with me for the sake of miracles from those who stay because they love me. The reason so many miss my timing is not that they are worse than others, but that they are too busy, too distracted, too attached to what is temporary. You have been like that too. You begin to pray with fervor, but just a small temptation, a sudden invitation to fun, a gentle suggestion from someone is enough to pull you off the path I have marked out for you. You want me to change your circumstances, yet you will not allow me to change your schedule, your habits, your priorities. You say, I love you, Lord, but you let everything else crowd in ahead of the time you set apart for me. When the moment comes for me to touch you, you are still absorbed in meaningless conversations, shallow worries, and competitive races that bring no life. And when the wind of the Holy Spirit passes by, you feel as if everything has gone back to normal. But in reality, you have missed a wave of grace that had been set aside especially for you in that season. My child, I want you to remember the story of the 10 virgins in the parable you have heard before, but look at it from another angle. All 10 were waiting for the bridegroom, which means they all began with the same desire. Yet only 5 were willing to prepare enough oil and patiently keep watch, though the night was long, while the other 5 grew weary, complacent, telling themselves, there is still time. When the shout rang out announcing the bridegroom's arrival, that was the moment of movement, a moment no one could delay. Those who were ready went into the wedding feast. Those who waited until the last minute to prepare stood outside, knocking in desperation. My child, I do not tell you that story to frighten you, but to remind you that there are graces, seasons of visitation, doors of spiritual opportunity that do not stay open forever. When I stir your heart, when I move in your home, that is the time for you to respond, not to wait for a more suitable feeling. Yet I am not leaving you behind just because you have been late with me before. I am Father. I see every time you stumble, and I keep on awakening you. Today, if you are reading these words, that in itself is a sign I am calling you back into my timing, not your own schedule anymore. I invite you simply to begin with a small response. Lord, I do not want to miss it again. Please make me sensitive to what you are doing in my home, in my heart. Then I want you to boldly realign your priorities, set aside a little less time for what is useless, so there is a little more room for my word, for prayer, for stillness before me. As you walk this way, you will find that you are no longer standing on the sidelines of this season of movement, but you are in the very current of it, being led by me, step by step, not merely someone who hears stories about miracles, but one who lives inside those miracles. My child, I want you to pause for a moment and truly listen. Your presence on this earth has never been a mistake. You were not born because of a moment of carelessness, a rushed decision, or a life drifting without direction. Before anyone knew your name, I had already spoken it in eternity. Before you ever felt small and meaningless, I had already seen you as part of a loving plan that I will not repeat with anyone else. In this world there are many people, but only you carry the unique combination of story, wounds, personality, dreams, and journey that belongs to you alone. I see it all, both what you are proud of and what you long to hide, and I still say, I choose you. When I place a calling on someone's life, I do not do it as decoration or mere encouragement and then leave it aside. Every call of mine comes with a promise, and every promise that comes from me carries within itself the power to become reality. Wherever I have spoken, there will always come a day of fulfillment. Wherever I am present, that place is no longer defined by failure or by the past, but by my victory. You do not have to strain to win for me. I myself am the one who fights for you. What I long for you to grasp today is not only that you are chosen, but also that you are living in a moment when heaven is already leaning in your favor. Even if you have not yet perceived it, you often imagine a visitation from heaven as something distant, happening only in large gatherings with music, lights, powerful preaching, and people weeping in repentance. But my child, today I want to let you in on a secret this very moment. As you sit quietly looking at the screen and listening to these words, is a real visitation. It is not an illusion, not a fleeting emotion. The instant you allow your soul to slow down and ponder, the spiritual world around you has already begun to move. Your hand may still be holding a phone. You may still be surrounded by the same 4 familiar walls. The noise of traffic outside may sound just like any other day, but in the realm your eyes cannot see, old things are being shaken. The invisible chains that have long bound your spiritual hands and feet, your inferiority, accusations, sense of uselessness, and the toxic words others have thrown at you are beginning to crack as my word reaches into the deepest places within you. It is no coincidence that as you hear this, your heart feels calmer, or you suddenly want to cry, or a nameless sadness rises to the surface. These are signs that I am touching the very depths you have tried so hard to cover. Do not be afraid of these tremors. They are not weakness, but the echo of a soul awakening to the realization, my Father is truly speaking to me. Have you ever noticed how a single negative sentence can make the atmosphere of an entire house grow heavy? How much more? Then, when I, the Creator, choose to step into your living space, I do not stand far away and shout down, try harder. I am the Father who comes right into the very place where you are most confused, exhausted, and ready to give up. I step into the room where you have cried alone in the night. I step into the kitchen where meals have been filled with silence. I step into the little corner where you so often sit staring blankly, scrolling without thinking because you have no strength left to consider anything more. I do not come to inspect whether you have lived your faith well enough. I come to share my breath with you, to tell you, you do not have to hold everything together on your own anymore. When I say I am entering your home, it is not a pious metaphor for effect, but a spiritual reality that, if you will believe, you will begin to sense in your mind and even in your body. There are homes that have long been saturated with the smell of arguing, of discouragement, of giving up. If you invite me, I will change the scent of that house into peace, gentleness, and hope, even if the outward circumstances do not change immediately. I know that the battles in your life are not just about the bills to be paid, the difficult people out there, or the pressures of study and work. The real battles are usually in the places no one else can see, the worries you dare not speak, the questions about your own worth, the feeling of being left behind, the nights when you quietly think, if I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone truly care? I see it all, every tear you wipe away in a hurry, every time you want to pray but do not know where to begin, every moment when you start to say, Lord, and then fall silent because you cannot find any more words. I do not blame you for those silent times. I treasure even your sighs, because to me they are also a kind of prayer. I do not come to stand at a distance and record your mistakes. I come to step into that battle with you. When I enter your home, I bring with me authority to confront what is weighing you down, fear, loneliness, and the patterns of sin that have repeated themselves in your family for generations. You do not have to break those curses by yourself. I am the one who shatters them. As long as you allow me to be Lord, not merely a guest. You may be asking in your heart, but how can I know for sure that anything is really happening? I don't feel very much. My child, do not rush to judge everything by what you feel. There are important surgeries that take place while the patient is under anesthesia. They feel nothing. Yet when they wake up, they are no longer the same. In the same way, there are deliverances, healings, and new directions that I am quietly working within you while you simply sit still, listen, and open your heart. Sometimes the first thing you notice is not some spectacular wow miracle, but a very small shift. You suddenly stay calmer in situations that used to make you flare up. You are able to forgive someone whose very name once made you ache. You find the courage to say no to something you have always been weak before. You begin to desire to come back to me after a long season of neglect. Do not despise these small movements, for they are the evidence that heaven has already begun to make a way in your home. I also know there are some who, even now, are saying, that's nice, but it's probably not for me. I've messed up too much. I've been broken for too long. My family is too tangled. My marriage is too shattered. My children have gone too far. My child, I do not choose you because you are easy to fix. I choose you because I love you. If I only accepted tidy lives, I would never have needed to come to this world or die on the cross. I stepped into the stories of people everyone else considered beyond hope. Zacchaeus, the greedy tax collector, the adulterous woman, the man possessed by demons among the tombs, the thief on the cross beside me, and I turned the apparent end of their stories into a new beginning. Your home does not intimidate me. I am willing to walk through every messy room, every corner of memory no one dares to touch. If you will dare to open the door to me, do not let the words "it's probably not for me" keep you from receiving the portion I have prepared for you. Others may have rejected you, but in my eyes you are still the one I call by name, still the empty seat in my house, still the story I long to continue writing. Today, if deep inside you feel something stirring, a little warmth returning, a little ache, a small longing to come back that is not because of a video, or a voice, or a situation, it is my Holy Spirit touching the very core of your being, knocking at the door of your house and at the door of your heart as well. I do not force the door open. I wait for you to turn the handle of your own free will. I wait for a very simple response. Lord, if it is truly you speaking to me, please come into my home. Come into my life. You do not have to get all the words right. You do not have to pray according to a set formula. I hear even your clumsy sentences. I understand even your half-spoken words. What I am looking for is not perfect phrasing, but a genuine heart. I look at you, and I know you are weak, but you are still sitting here, still reading these lines, which means that deep inside you, there is still an ember that has not gone out. I do not need a great flame. I only need a small ember. I will breathe on it. I will shield it. I will tend it, so that from that ember, one day, the flame of faith will flare up, lighting not only your life but your whole household. Those you love, those who have never yet known me. Today, you do not need to understand everything. You only need to hold on to one thing. You have not wandered in here by accident. This is an appointment I arranged long ago. Heaven is bending low over your roof, and I, your Father, am standing right at the threshold, waiting for you to open. Let what you write, what you utter today, become your answer to this appointment. And from now on, day by day, I will lead you on, step by small step, through quiet victories, until you look back and realize from the moment I came in, nothing has remained the same. Listen to me carefully, because what I am about to say to you is not only a word of comfort, but a word of awakening. When I decide to step into your space, when I let my presence flood your home, nothing can remain fixed as it was. The things you have long called exhausted to the point of numbness will gradually turn into a new endurance that even you will not understand where it comes from. The long nights soaked in tears will no longer be only memories of sorrow, but will become stones marking the path along which I have carried you. The stretches of time you thought were God's silence, I will turn into my answer, not through a thunderclap from the sky, but through real changes in your heart, in your family, in the way you see life. Today I do not come merely to drop by like a stranger who steps over the threshold, exchanges a few greetings, and hastily leaves. I am reaching out my hand to pull you upright from what has weighed you down for so many years. You may have lost your bearings, may have dropped your joy, may even have thought you were past your expiry date in my plans. But I tell you this, everything I purposed for you from the beginning still holds its full value. No wound, no stumble, no human judgment has the power to force me to erase the plan I have written for you and for your household. Instead of seeing your life as a ruined draft, let me show you this: even the pages you have crumpled up, I can still use to weave a new story, more beautiful and more meaningful. Therefore, do not open only your ears to listen briefly and then forget. I invite you to open your whole heart, to open the deepest drawers within, to open even the places you thought I did not want to touch, so that my voice, not the voice of condemnation, but of love, may resound down to the very deepest places inside you. Stop straining to resist me. Do not let old painful experiences drag you forever into a spiral of doubt. I understand why you hesitate. You have hoped and then been disappointed. You have prayed and felt as if nothing changed. You have opened your heart to people and then been hurt. I know these things have made you cautious, even with me, though you never said it aloud. But I have not come to demand that you be strong at once. I have come to guide you gently, little by little, step by step. Your task is not to fix everything by yourself. Your task, first of all, is to dare to believe that I am truly at work, even when you do not yet see much change on the surface. You imagine that if I act, it must be clear, loud, spectacular. But many times I choose to begin with very quiet things, a thought being healed, an old wound aching less, a conversation in which you suddenly find the courage to say, I am sorry, a moment when you can finally sleep peacefully after so many restless nights. Do not treat these things as small, for it is precisely from such seemingly simple things that I will rebuild new foundations for your life. The day will come when what I have done in secret will be brought into the open, so that not only you, but those around you will have to admit, the hand of the Lord is at work there. I do not want only you to know that I am the Lord of your heart. I want people to look at your home, to look at what has happened in your family, and recognize that I am the Lord of that whole household. You may say to me, Lord, You do not really understand. My home is a mess. It cannot be fixed with just a few prayers. But I ask you to remember this: there is not a single wrinkle in the story of your life that I have not witnessed. I have seen every scratch in your feelings, the words of criticism, the times you were belittled, the arguments that made you want to keep quiet just to end them. I have been there in the tense conversations between you and your loved ones, when the words had not yet left your lips and you already feared they would cause more hurt. I have heard even the sentences you did not dare to speak aloud, only repeated in your mind: if only things were different. If only our home were less tense. If only I could be at peace. Just once. Completely. I do not pass indifferently by those silent pains, nor do I dismiss them as little things. I see every pocket of silence in your family, the meals without laughter, the closed rooms where each person lives in a world of their own, and I know those silences can sometimes hurt more than 1,000 harsh words. You think no one notices, but I notice. You think everyone has forgotten, but I have not forgotten. That is why I tell you that today is not like every other day, because today I am laying my hand on places where, until now, any touch has made you flinch in pain. I do not touch to make you ache more. I touch so that this pain may begin to be healed. Do you know that I have walked through your home with the eyes of a father, not of a judge, keeping a record of faults? I pass through the kitchen, where you have often cooked in weariness, yet forced yourself to smile. I go by the living room where there were once joyful memories, now gradually replaced by moments when each person is absorbed in their own screen. I stop at the small room where you sometimes kneel. Slowly lift your head and ask, "Lord, are you here?" I hear clearly every prayer you hastily whisper before leaving for work, and even the words you say only in your mind while lying in bed, afraid to let them sound out in case someone hears and questions or intrudes. Every time you sigh and say, "I just wish for a little peace," I have heard, and more than just hearing. I have allowed those words to touch my heart. I care not merely because I am responsible for you, but because I truly love you, like a father who cannot bear to leave his child living forever in a state of tension, heaviness, and exhaustion with no way out. The peace you long for is not the fragile kind that shatters with the slightest disturbance. The peace I want to give you is a deep, quiet inside. Even while many things on the outside are still imperfect, I want you soon to know what it is to breathe out in relief without having to pretend to be fine in front of anyone. You tell me that your home has nothing worth mentioning, that it is not beautiful enough, not spacious enough, not tidy enough, not up to standard like the houses people show off online. Sometimes you feel ashamed of the lack, the corners not yet repaired, the old, worn things you have used for years. You feel inferior because you are only renting, because the deed is not in your name, because nothing feels secure. But to me, none of that is a barrier. I do not choose your home for its size, its furnishings, or its location. I choose it because I choose you. As long as there is one heart willing to open the door to me, then even if it is a tiny rented room, I will still make it a place where heaven touches earth. Do you remember the story of the little tax collector whom everyone despised, who climbed up a tree just to see me pass by? When I lifted my head and called him down, I did not say, "Take me somewhere more luxurious." I said, "Today I must come to your house." That house was not the most splendid place, not the one many people admired. It was simply the place where there was a heart that knew it needed me. And in just the brief day I stayed there, that despised house became an explosion point of transformation. Greed was replaced by generosity, sin by repentance, shame by the honor of being visited by me. I recount that story to you, not as something distant and ancient, but as a mirror I want to hold up to your present life. Today I also stand at the threshold of your home and say, I want to come in. I do not require you to clean everything up perfectly before you dare open the door. I only ask that you stop leaving me standing out in the hallway of your life. Right now, where you are sitting, whether in the living room or on a narrow corner of your bed, you can say to me, Lord, I have nothing to offer but this tangled heart. Yet, I want to invite you in. That is the invitation I have long been waiting for. When you truly open your heart like that, I will not only touch your soul, I will also touch the very space where you live. From bedroom to living room, from kitchen to the walls that have witnessed so many tears. I will begin to change the atmosphere there, not by a magic trick that makes everything sparkle in a second, but by bringing into it forgiveness, understanding, conversations that are healed, and new decisions full of courage. And dear child, this is not just a speech for you to be moved by for a few minutes and then forget. I am asking for a very concrete response from you. I want you not only to listen with your ears, but to affirm it with your own mouth. With a small yet sincere act. When you are ready, say to me and to yourself, in a simple yet resolute phrase, that you believe heaven is touching earth in your home. You can write it down. Speak it out. Keep it somewhere to remind yourself whenever doubt returns. Let that declaration be a spiritual landmark today. You and I together mark a new day for this home. For when I come in, I do not come empty-handed. I bring the peace you have searched for everywhere and not found. I bring light to shine into every dark corner. I bring new hope so that you may know the road ahead is not just a meaningless repetition of what has been. Today, even if your circumstances have not yet changed, you can begin to live as one who knows that the sky which belongs to me has bent low over your roof. And from that moment on, every breath, every conversation, every decision in your family will no longer be the same. Because I, the one from heaven, have chosen to remain here with you, my little child. From the very moment you opened your heart and called to me, even if only with an unspoken sigh, I quietly stepped into the house of your life. I did not come with hands that condemn, but with the heart of a father who sees clearly every tear and rip in the soul of his beloved child. I see the deep wounds you carefully hide behind polite smiles, the times you say, I'm fine, while inside you are falling apart. I have not come to ask you why you are weak, why you stumble. I have come to say to you, that is enough. You have been forcing yourself to carry on alone for too long. Let me hold you. In my arms you no longer need to be strong. You no longer need to appear brave. You only need to honestly admit that you are tired, that you no longer want to manage everything on your own. It is in the very moment you dare to lay down the shell of pretending to be strong that I can begin to touch the deepest places in your heart, the places you have never allowed anyone to reach. I have come to heal, but not merely to patch over the surface of your wounds. I have come to go back to the deep roots that have made your soul bleed for so long. I know you have been betrayed, abandoned, misunderstood, spoken to with words that made you lose faith in people, and at times even in me. I know there are questions you do not dare to say aloud, yet they smolder within you. If you love me, why did you allow that to happen? I am not angry about those questions. I understand. I sit down beside your life like a patient father, listening fully to what you have never dared to voice, to the sobs you have buried into your pillow night after night. Then I begin to answer you, not with complicated arguments, but with my very presence. I do not promise to explain every reason to you, but I let you know one sure thing. In the midst of all that pain, I never turned my back. I was there, holding your heart so that it did not shatter completely. You think I only answer when you pray the right way, long enough, fervently enough. But my child, I have heard every sigh you let out as you came home with your shoulders heavy. I have heard the times you whispered in your heart, "Lord, I can't take this anymore," and then brushed it aside, thinking that was not a real prayer. To me, every whisper is a cry for help. The questions you have buried, the worries you do not know how to share with anyone, I have kept them all. I have not come to rebuke you for your weakness. I have come to walk with you through every page of your life where you thought I was absent. I remind you of the moments you thought were random, someone showing up at just the right time, a word of comfort spoken at the right moment, a door, however small, opening when you thought there was no way out. None of these were coincidences, but quiet answers I sent to you to say, "I am still here. I still here. I am still at work." But I do not only want to give you temporary comfort so that you hurt a little less and then return to the old cycle. I bring you a new beginning, one you yourself thought you no longer had a chance for. You look back at your mistakes, your falls, the wrong choices that turned your life in another direction, and you conclude, it is too late. You believe you can only go on living as someone who merely puts out fires, trying to patch together the pieces you have already dropped and broken. But I, the one who writes the story of your life, do not see you as a ruined rough draft. I see you as a page on which I can still go on drawing. And even from those very errors I can create something more beautiful, deeper, more authentic. I do not erase your past. I transform that past into a testimony. Where you once were broken, I can make that very place become a source of comfort for others later on. A new beginning does not start when you run away from what has happened, but when you allow me to step right into it and affirm the ending you fear is not a full stop, but a comma, so that I may continue to write. When I say I am cleansing your house, I am not speaking only of 4 brick walls, but of the invisible atmosphere that hangs over your family. I see the careless words that wound, the sideways glances, the heavy memories that still circle within your home yet are never mentioned. I see the objects, the images, the content you allow into your house through screens, through music, through stories, unintentionally opening doors for darkness to slip in. I do not come to frighten you. I come to gently tidy up. Like a father rolling up his sleeves, I begin to gather away what does not belong to the light, bitter thoughts, curses, ways of speaking that discourage one another, forms of entertainment that only dry out the soul. I do not snatch everything from you in a single day. I gradually show you this is not good for your soul. That is staining the atmosphere in your home. This habit is opening a crack for anxiety and insecurity to creep in. When you agree to let me touch these things, little by little, the spiritual house you live in begins to be washed clean. At the same time, I quietly lift from your shoulders the burdens you have carried for so long that you have come to think they are part of who you are. The worries about money, about the future, about your children, about your parents, about the things you cannot control have bent your back without you noticing. You step into your home while your mind is still dragged back to work, to battles out there, until your home is no longer a place of rest but the place where you bring all your exhaustion to unload. I do not blame you for the pressure you are under. I know every bill, every decision, every fear buried deep inside you. But I want you to remember that you were not born to live strung tight like a bowstring month after month. I draw near and say to you, give those burdens to me. You cannot carry everything, but I can. When you begin to learn to place your worries in my hands, not every problem disappears at once, but something very different happens. You are no longer facing them alone. And from the day you truly allow me to remain in your home, you will gradually sense changes that at first you think are just coincidences. There will be nights when the people in your house sleep more deeply. no longer tossing and turning under thoughts that spin endlessly in their minds as before. The child who has long been startled awake and crying in the night will suddenly sleep more peacefully. Not so much because you changed the milk or the bedtime, but because the atmosphere around them is lighter, calmer, no longer filled with the invisible waves of tension they had been absorbing every day. The husband, the wife who comes home from work, will suddenly feel their hearts soften as they step through the doorway. Even though the pressure outside is still heavy, they cannot explain why. It is simply that when they open that door, their hearts can breathe out. Conversations will begin to include more words like, "Thank you," "I'm sorry," "I understand," instead of criticism or uncomfortable silence. All of this is not because everyone in the house suddenly becomes more reasonable, but because my presence is soaking into every little corner. I work without noise. I come like a gentle breeze that passes through in the afternoon, seeming to be nothing. Yet afterward, you realize the room is no longer as stifling as before. I am present like a faint fragrance whose source no one sees, but everyone senses. There is something very different here. I shine like the first rays of morning slipping through the crack in a door, needing no knock, no permission, simply because light always finds a way to enter any place where even a small opening remains. When you turn my word on in your home, when you let songs of praise rise, when you open sincere conversations with me, you are opening more cracks for that light to pour in. And once the light has come, the darkness cannot remain the way it was. It has to shrink back and make room for peace, for hope, for thanksgiving. You will find yourself less irritable over small things, less quick to assume the worst of one another, less inclined to let words slip out that wound others. It is not because you are trying harder to control yourself, but because something inside you is being healed. A healthy heart no longer pours out poison as before. When you sit with me and let me heal the old pains, I am also teaching you to speak words that carry new life. You will learn to bless your husband, your wife, your children, your parents, your brothers and sisters with your mouth. You will begin to see reasons for gratitude in people you previously saw only as sources of irritation. And from there, the atmosphere in your home, once heavy and tense, will gradually become warmer and safer. I do not promise that once I step in, your home will never again know conflict, or trial, or tears. But I do guarantee you this: whenever a storm rises, you will no longer have to face it alone. I will be there, in the middle of the living room, by the dining table, in the small room where you kneel. I will remind you of the words I have spoken, remind you of the times I lifted you up. I will help you calm down so that you do not say the things you will later regret. I will place in your heart wisdom to know when to speak, when to be silent, when to step forward and embrace the one you love instead of turning your back and walking away. With me, your home will no longer be a vague battlefield, but will become a refuge, a place where you are strengthened, healed, and reoriented. And from that very home, I will send you out to be a source of comfort for other homes that are still fractured out there. My child, everything I am doing is not to add one more layer of dry religion onto your life, but so that you may truly live with a lighter heart, a warmer home, and a future that is no longer a blind, dark night. I am rebuilding from the inside out, beginning with the place closest to you, your home. Once your home is changed, you will clearly sense that your whole journey with me is also entering a new season. It will no longer be a matter of believing just for the sake of it, praying just to get it over with, living just to get by, but a life whose heartbeat is in rhythm with mine. And then, every morning when you wake up, you will be able to whisper, "Lord, I know that today you are still in my home." in my heart, and I no longer have to carry this life on my own. I am here, and I will not leave your home until my loving plan is fulfilled in your life and in the lives of those you love. My child, do you realize this? There are very strange moments. Not noisy, not dazzling. Yet inside you, something suddenly softens, as if someone had laid a hand on your shoulder and said, "That is enough. Stop straining. Right now you are in such a moment. It is not because of the music, not because of the setting, but because I am drawing near. I do not need a sign hanging up or a loud introduction. I just need to touch very gently. And your soul already knows. That sense of relief that has just flooded in, that tightening worry that has loosened, that loneliness whose color has faded, that is not a passing emotion. It is the footprint of heaven stepping into your home. You think you are casually watching a video, listening to a sharing. But I say to you, it is not by chance. I made an appointment to meet you at this very minute, among thousands of choices. You opened the very door where I am. The stillness surrounding you is not an empty space. It is the cloak of peace I am wrapping around your soul. You have grown so used to having to hold yourself up and figure everything out on your own that when I embrace you with a strange, unfamiliar safety, you feel a little awkward, a little suspicious, wondering, is this real? Or just a passing emotion? I understand. You have experienced enough disappointment to be afraid of hope. But let me say this to you very clearly. You are not sitting here alone. I am right here in the room where you are, in the middle of your tangled thoughts, in the tears you have not yet dared to shed. The peace you feel is not the result of your trying to think positively, but of my quiet hand tightening its grip on yours. When I come, the space is the same. The walls are the same. The house is the same, but the deepest part of you begins to change. My child, I do not come just to pay a casual visit and then leave. Every time I draw near to your life, it is always an intentional visitation. I am the one who created you. I do not do anything randomly or just to get it over with. The warmth, the comfort, the gentle soothing you are sensing are only the first drops of the rain I long to pour out over you. While you are still confused and unsure of what you should do next, I already see clearly the bends in the road ahead. I have come to prepare your heart for what you cannot yet see. I am tidying up the chaos inside, gathering the broken fragments you thought were meaningless, making way for something new that is coming. The nameless wounds, the questions you have hidden, the disappointments you have not even managed to name, I have recorded them all. I have not come to pat you on the head for a moment and then leave you to fall back into the same old cycle. I have come to change the very trajectory of your whole life. Beginning from this very small moment, I want you to understand that I am not here only to comfort you and then stop. I am also preparing to speak to you about the promises I have sown that you may have forgotten. There are words I planted in your heart when you were still very young, pure dreams, desires to serve, longings to live with integrity, to live in a way that pleases me. They have never disappeared. They have only been buried under layers of fear, exhaustion, and hurt. Today, as you sit still and listen to me, I am stirring those things up again. I want to remind you that I have not forgotten a single word I have ever spoken to you. Even though time has passed, even though you have forgotten the prayers you once whispered in the long nights, I still remember them clearly. I have come to awaken those promises, to let you know that the words that go forth from my mouth will not fall to the ground in vain. There are things you think are already too late, but with me they are still right on time. For I am the Lord of time. I am also preparing to open ways you have never thought of. You feel as though your life is like a room with only a few doors, and you have knocked on every one of them without seeing any open. So you concluded, maybe my life can only go this far. But you do not yet know that I am the one who can open paths right where you see only dead ends. I have doors your eyes have not yet seen, roads you have never even dreamed of. I will not thrust you into them with a violent, overwhelming gust of wind, but with small, very ordinary steps that, if you are not watchful, you will easily dismiss as just a coincidence. That is why I want to draw you to remain longer in my presence, so that your eyes grow familiar with the light, so that you begin to recognize my footprints in things that seem so ordinary within your own home. My child, I know your natural tendency is to listen for a moment and then move on to something else. You are easily moved to tears for an instant and then swept back into the old whirlwind, forgetting what I have just sown. But I earnestly ask you to be different this time. Do not be quick to turn away. Do not rush past this. The gentleness you are receiving now is not just a pleasant feeling, but a signal of a new season. I am calling you with a very soft voice to see whether you are sensitive enough to respond. The more you remain with me, the more room you give me in your mind, the deeper and wider I can work in your heart. If you only drop by like a stranger, you will miss what I long to reveal as a father to his own child. You may ask, but Lord, will things really change? How many times have I believed, only to be broken again? I do not blame you for such doubts. I know each story that has made you numb. I know how the faith you once cherished has been wounded. But I also know every time you fell and still got back up. Every time you wanted to give up but still restlessly sought after me. Today I have not come to review all the times you were weak. I have come to say, I have seen that you have stayed. It is precisely that you have stayed that draws me closer to you. And I promise you this, what lies ahead will not be like what you have already been through. Not because life will suddenly become easy, but because this time you will walk with a clear awareness that I am walking with you, that I am in your home, in each decision you make, the sufferings, the barren stretches of road, the tears you have swallowed, none of it has been wasted. I have gathered them all, not letting a single drop be lost. I have used them to shape your heart, making you softer toward the pain of others, teaching you to treasure small things, causing you to long for values that belong to eternity rather than things that quickly pass away. You thought you were only hanging on and surviving, but I have been quietly digging deeper foundations within you, so that when my appointed time comes, as it is right now, you will be able to receive something greater without being swept away by it. All that you have endured will become the very material with which I build something new, a steadfast heart, a mature faith, and a life that knows how to pass on to others the comfort you yourself have received. My child, if you open your heart, you will begin to sense a very gentle trembling from within, as if something inside you has just shifted. Old rigid thought patterns will start to wobble. The fears that once controlled you will begin to lose their grip. The wounds that seemed frozen will start to melt. That is the sign that I am stepping deeper into your house. When I enter, I do not stand only in the living room to decorate it nicely. I go into the rooms you have tried to lock, the places of shameful memories, mistakes, wrong decisions, and things you do not dare to tell anyone. I do not enter to scold you, but to wipe things clean, to put them in order, to bring in light. And once I have set foot there, no corner of you will remain as it was before. Remember this and keep it deep in your heart. This is not just a tender little moment between you and God. This is a turning point. From this point on, if you will take my hand, you will begin to see tangible changes in the way you view yourself, in the way you face your family, in the atmosphere of your home, in the choices you make each day. It will not be a loud, dramatic page turn, but page by page of your life being rewritten with my pen. What has passed will not be erased, but I will change its meaning. What is coming will no longer be a string of days where you merely try to grit your teeth and get through, but a journey in which you and I together watch heaven carry out its purpose right in this seemingly ordinary house. Can you feel it? The breath of something new is very near. I am standing right at the threshold. And if you will simply say, Lord, I invite you in fully, then, from that very moment, nothing in you, in your home, in your future, will be able to remain the same. You know, when I draw near, nothing can stay as it was. Not even the things you thought had long been framed and fixed in your life. I do not walk past any room of your soul and leave it just as dark as before. I do not pass by your pain like a stranger hurrying down the street. I stop. I touch. I rearrange. I untie each knot that even you no longer have the strength to name. Wherever I am present, the atmosphere begins to change hue. What is decayed is brought to light so it can be healed. What has long been dead in silence begins to hear the call to rise. The invisible cords that bind your mind are loosened one by one, not with crashing noise, but with such a strange, deep peace that you cannot help but ask, why does my heart suddenly feel so light? I tell you these things not to frighten you, but so that you understand I have never intended for you to keep playing the game of pretending to be okay for even one more day. For I see straight through your forced smiles. I hear the sobs you swallow. I read the questions you do not dare to pray out loud. And for that very reason, today I step in deeper. I'm no longer standing out on the porch of your heart. I know you are tired of always having to appear strong. I know you are exhausted from living in a role where you must constantly brace yourself and be fine in front of others. I know there are nights when you lie staring at the ceiling, whispering to yourself, if things keep going like this, I'm going to break. And yet the next morning you wash your face, put on a smile, and jump back into the same old rhythm as if nothing ever happened. I see the conflicts that repeat again and again in your home, the old stories that keep causing new wounds, the glances that grow cold and turn away, the apologies that remain unspoken, the love that is never expressed. I see the doors of opportunity that seem to open only to close again. The dreams you once held close and then folded away into a corner of the closet because you thought I did not remember them. I hear the prayers you believe have vanished into thin air. Not a single one of your sighs is ignored by me. The heavy atmosphere surrounding you, not only in your house but also within your chest, has made you want to give up so many times. And it is precisely in the moment when you think, maybe nothing will ever change, that I have quietly stepped in, not to rebuke you for being weak, but to say, that's enough, my child. Now it is my turn to act. You think all this heaviness is just your personality, your fate, your circumstances. But I tell you the truth, behind those things there is a spiritual tug of war, where darkness looks for every way to cling to your wounds, your fears, your memories and old habits in order to keep you there. I have not come merely to wipe away your tears and then leave you to return to the same old chair. I have come to turn over what has long been pressed down, to let the light touch the corners you always avoid, so that you no longer have to live even one more day in the condition of living yet not truly alive. Therefore I will expose the things you have grown used to hiding, not to shame you but to heal you of them. I will show you clearly which relationships are dragging your soul downward, which compromises are wearing away the life within you, which choices have jammed the doors I have opened for you. I will stir back to life the dreams I once planted in your heart, but that you quickly buried under the label impossible. I will show you that every time you declared, that is probably not for me, you were slamming shut the very door I was opening. And I will gently teach you again how to say yes to me, little by little. Wherever I step in, darkness cannot casually remain. That is not an exaggeration. but a spiritual reality. When light appears, the shadow does not need to be pushed away by hand. It is forced to vanish on its own, and when my presence floods in, the obsessions, fears, accusations, and shame that have long operated in you can no longer roam as they once did. They can no longer tell you, "You will never change," because at that moment my voice will sound within you more strongly, "I am at work in you." And so you will begin to notice small things changing, a moment when you are about to explode in anger but manage to stop. A time when you would usually stay silent and let things pass, but instead choose to speak words of forgiveness. An evening when you are about to scroll away your exhaustion, but then you stop. Put your phone down and have a real conversation with someone in your house. A morning when you would typically complain, but instead you whisper, "Lord, please go with me today." Such seemingly small things are the signs that I am shifting the foundations inside, that I am causing long blocked doors to begin to open again, that I am driving out of your life what does not belong to you, gently yet decisively, patiently yet without ever stopping. You may ask in your heart, "Lord, are you perhaps speaking too strongly? Will things really change that much? Or will everything just go back to the way it was?" I understand that doubt, because you have hoped and then been disappointed. You have clung to a promise and then watched it seem to dissolve into thin air. But I want you to remember, I am not the people who have wounded you. I am not the half-kept promises you have heard in this world. I am the one who does not change. I do not speak to soothe you for a few minutes and then leave you exactly where you were. I do not lift you up only to let you fall. I do not reopen your pain only to walk away. When I touch a wound, it is to bind it up. When I lay bare the depths of your heart, it is to pour oil and wine into the torn places. When I breathe life into dreams that seem dead, it is so you will know that I have never forgotten what I placed within you. I will not promise that everything will change in a single night, but I assure you that from the moment you open your heart for me to enter, the very course of your life has already turned, and no darkness can keep you forever where you now stand. I do not only want to comfort you for a brief moment, I want to rewrite, together with you, the story of your household, your lineage, your future. For when my presence truly settles in your home, not only does the atmosphere change, but the course of what will unfold in the generations after you is also shifted. A timid prayer you whisper now can become a source of blessing for your children later on. A single act of obedience you choose in the midst of exhaustion can open a door whose meaning you will only understand many years from now. One tear of repentance today can be the starting point of an entire river of healing. So when I say that everything is changing right now, it is not merely a passing emotional shift, but a spiritual restructuring that I am quietly carrying out. Even if your natural eyes cannot yet see it clearly, I am removing the heavy stones of the past. I am pulling, one by one, the thorns of bitterness out of your chest. I am replacing the words that made you despise yourself with the words I speak over you, so that one day you yourself will look back and whisper, "If the Lord had not stepped in, I would still be standing in exactly the same place." But my child, for all of this to become alive, I need one very small thing from you, a response. However weak it may seem, I do not demand that you become perfect at once, nor do I wait until you are cleaned up and put together before I step in. I embrace you right in the middle of your present chaos. Yet I invite you to choose to stand on my side. Even when your feelings have not yet caught up, I invite you to dare to say to me, "Lord, I do not understand everything, but I do not want to keep living the way I have. If you truly are stepping in, please do not let me close my heart again." Just one small word like that, a single sigh lifted toward me, a glance raised in the night is enough for me to begin a chain of changes that will surprise even you. And as you learn to respond to my gentle nudges to read my word again instead of avoiding it, to speak honestly with me instead of staying silent, to run to me instead of bearing everything alone, you will realize that what I am saying to you today is not an exaggeration at all, but only the beginning of a deeper journey, where every part of your life, from the way you think, love, and forgive to the atmosphere in your home, gradually turns toward one single direction, the place where I am at the center. Pause for a moment and look deeply at your own journey. How many times did you feel that everything was over? That there was no way out? No strength left to stand? And yet somehow you still made it through. There were nights when you thought, tomorrow I will not be able to bear this anymore. Yet in the morning, your eyes still opened. You still carried on. Still lived. Still managed to handle things that seemed far beyond your ability. You have called that trying hard, being strong, relying on yourself. But I tell you the truth, if it had only been your own strength, you would have collapsed long ago. It was I who upheld you in those moments no one saw. It was I who kept your heart from shattering. It was I who whispered you back to your feet when you no longer had the strength to believe in yourself. You did not recognize that it was me, so you thought you had made it through on your own. Yet I remained patient, not blaming you, quietly continuing to shelter you. Today I do not want you merely to look back and marvel at how capable you have been. I want you to see that the hand that held you then is still outstretched now. And this time, I do not only want to lift you up, I want to step fully into your home, deep into every corner of your life. My child, right now, I am drawing near to your home once again. I do not enter with noise, with blinding glory, or with signs that make people gasp in amazement. I come in the way of a quiet Father, bringing with me peace, truth, healing, and an unchanging love. I do not come to put my power on display. I come to restore to your household what you have lost amid busyness and brokenness, the peace that comes from heaven. I long for you not merely to listen with your ears and leave it there, but to respond with one small action, very small, yet with great spiritual meaning. Write it down as a declaration to yourself and to the whole realm of heaven. Today, the Lord has brought His peace into my home. When you dare to say that, you are not just trying to comfort yourself, you are opening the door for me to work more deeply, more widely, and farther than you can imagine. My presence is not a vague idea, it is a reality. Wherever I am welcomed, the atmosphere begins to change from the words people speak and the thoughts they think to the way they look at one another and treat one another. My child, when I am truly present in a home, no heart can remain frozen forever. Hearts that have hardened through hurt, pride, or self-protection will gradually soften, like dry ground meeting rain. Pride, that thing which makes people always have to be right, always above, always winning. Every argument will melt under my light. For in my eyes, no one needs to prove they are better than anyone else. There are only children who need to be loved and who must learn to love again. The sick, even if their bodies are not instantly healed, will feel their souls grow so much lighter, because the weight of worry, fear, and despair is slowly being lifted from their shoulders. The lies the enemy has whispered to your family that nothing will ever change, that this house is just like this, that it cannot get any better, will begin to crack and then collapse before the truth I bring. You will gradually understand that my presence is not something that can be overlooked or taken lightly. When I step in, no burst of anger is harmless. No word is just something said. No attitude is no big deal. Everything becomes significant, because I want to use even the smallest detail to heal, restore, and transform. I know you are utterly exhausted from trying to manage everything on your own. You are not only tired because of work or financial pressure, you are weary from having to brace yourself to hold the house together, to keep the peace, to keep everyone from falling apart. You have tried again and again to fix other people with your words, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp, hoping that if you spoke enough, they would change. You have tried effort, reasoning, tears, even silence, wishing that the other person would understand, would change, would grow up, would stop hurting you. You have gathered everything onto your small shoulders, trying to calculate what more you need to do, how much more you must endure, how far you must stretch yourself so that things will get better. But the more you try, the more powerless you feel, the more you attempt to mold others to your expectations, the more you feel pushed to the margins, misunderstood and drained. You blame them, and then you begin to blame yourself. Maybe I am just not good enough. And finally, very quietly, you even blame me, God. Where are you? That you let me be this alone, my child. I want to draw you into my arms and whisper a truth you have forgotten. You were not created to play the role of savior in your own home. You were not born to be the hero who tries to carry every mood, every temperament, every wound of those around you. You are simply a child in need of me, not the God of other people. You can love, you can pray, you can give counsel, but only I can touch the deepest place in their hearts, the place your words can never reach. When you forget this, you end up living in two kinds of exhaustion. First, the helplessness of seeing that the other person is not changing the way you hope. Second, the self-reproach of thinking you have not tried hard enough. I do not want you to live like that. I want you to learn to place that burden back into my hands, to stop demanding results right away, and to let me work in my way, in my timing, according to my rhythm. I know there is someone in your household whom, just by thinking of them, your heart grows heavy. It may be a parent, a spouse, a child, a brother or sister, or some other relative bound to you by a tie that is both love and pain. You no longer know how to face that person whenever you speak. It turns into an argument whenever you keep silent. It turns into distance when you swallow your words. You feel wronged when you fight for yourself. You feel exhausted. You have brought that person before me many times. You have wept, poured out your heart, begged, complained, asked why, wanted to let go and yet could not. There have even been moments when you fell silent because you thought praying would no longer make any difference and everything would remain the same. You see that person still hard, still cold, still repeating the behaviors that hurt you, and you conclude, perhaps God is doing nothing at all. But my beloved child, just because you do not yet see does not mean I am standing still. I am at work in places you cannot reach, in the deep layers of that person's mind and memory where you have no right of access. There are fragments of their past that even they do not dare to open. Yet I know them all. There are fears, shame, and stories that have never been spoken aloud, which have turned them into the hard, distant, stubborn person you see. You only meet the surface of who they are, the reactions, the words, the specific behaviors, but I see the whole picture within. So when you think I have done nothing, in reality I am quietly loosening each knot, dismantling each layer of defense, removing each mask they have worn for so long to cover their wounds. That work is not noisy, not showy, not carried out on a schedule you can count on your fingers, but it is real, and it is continuing. Today I want you to hear my words clearly. I have already begun to act in places you cannot touch. What I am asking of you is not more pressure, more worry, more plans to fix the other person, but more trust in the work I am doing. Replace your hopeless sighs with prayers of surrender, Lord. I place this person in your hands. I cannot change them. but I believe you can. I choose to be faithful in love and faithful in intercession. But I will no longer try to control the outcome. As you begin to pray in this way, the burden on your shoulders will slowly become lighter, not because the situation changes overnight, but because you know you no longer have to strain by yourself to save the whole family. You will discover something new. I am not only working on that person, I am also working in you, teaching you patience, teaching you to trust, teaching you to love without possessing, teaching you to hope without imposing. And while I continue to act in places you cannot see, I want to use you yourself as a channel of peace right within your home. I am not asking you to become perfect first. I am simply inviting you to be the first one in your family to decide to welcome me in completely. Each time you choose gentle words instead of an outburst, each time you choose silent prayer instead of a bitter reply, each time you choose to look at that person with compassion instead of judgment, you are creating space for my presence to be felt more clearly. You do not need to see results right away. You only need to persevere, just as you have persevered through so many storms in the past. And one day you yourself will look back in amazement and say, if the Lord Himself had not entered this house, this could never have happened. On that day, the confession you write today, the Lord has brought peace into my home, will no longer be just words on a page, but will become the true story of your own life and of your own family. My child, I know there are places in your life where you have told yourself, this is the end, nothing can be restored. There are doors you have stood and knocked on until your knuckles were raw, then walked away in silence. Dreams you once cherished that you have now wrapped up and hidden deep in a corner of your heart, warning yourself never to open them again so you will not be hurt one more time. There are relationships that once were your refuge, which now are nothing but a web of cracks too painful to look at, and each memory of them makes your heart tighten. There are prayers you have repeated until you have no words left, only sighs and weary eyes staring at the ceiling in the dark of night. You thought that was the end, the place where the story had to close. But my little child, you forget that the place where you see a full stop is exactly where I begin to write the next chapter in a way you could never imagine. I am not limited by the walls you keep running into, nor bound by the labels and verdicts people have put on you. You stop because you have spent all your strength, but I never grow weary. You are blocked because you do not know how to explain, how to open your mouth. But I can step into hearts you cannot touch and walk into regions of memory you have long locked away. There are rooms in your inner world that have been closed and dusty for many years, rooms you think no one could ever clean. But I hold the key to every door. I can pass through wounds you do not dare to name, touch the shame you always hide, and enter the dark corners you yourself are afraid to revisit. You are stopped by the limits of time, of memory, of emotion. But I am the one who is above them all. With me, there is no too late, no beyond cure, no cannot be saved. Think of Lazarus, who had lain in the tomb for 4 days, whose body already smelled of death, whose loved ones had accepted the reality and whose friends had all let go. When I arrived, they said to me, if you had been here earlier, things might have been different. That is also what you whisper to me in your heart. If only you had intervened before my marriage fell apart, before my family broke down, before I sank into this mire. You keep thinking that the right time has passed, that I have arrived too late, that miracles are only for those who come early. But, my child, I stood before the tomb of Lazarus when everyone had already accepted the outcome, and I did not say, "What a pity." I called his name, and the dead man walked out of the grave. Have you forgotten I am the one who does not stop at death itself? How then could I stop at a closed door, at a hardened heart, at the tangled mess of your life? what you call finished. I call not yet over. When I am present, I do not merely comfort you with a few gentle words and then leave you to return to the same old chaos. I come to set everything in order, from the inside out, from the roots and not just the branches, all the tasks swirling in your mind, all the fears piling up like mountains, all the negative thoughts running in circles with no way out. I can step right into the center of that storm and speak one word: be still. When I speak, the fierce wind stops its howling and the waves in your heart slowly settle. Where there used to be only complaints, self-blame, and harsh words against yourself, I can replace them with a stillness filled with peace. It is not the suffocating silence of repressed emotion, but a gentle consolation where you can breathe deeply and know I no longer have to hold everything together. The Lord is here with me now. You have lived with anxiety for so long that you have begun to think it is part of who you are. You tell yourself you were born this way. You say, I am weak by nature. I am easily afraid. And then you allow fear to dictate your schedule, your sleep, the way you speak, the way you love. But I have come to turn that trembling into steadfastness, not because from now on you will never face storms again, but because from now on, whenever the waves rise, you will remember that you are no longer alone out on the sea. I hold your hand in difficult meetings. I walk with you through dark days. I stand beside you when you face big decisions for which you feel completely unqualified. When you know I am walking with you, anxiety will no longer be the master sitting on the throne of your heart. It will be pulled down from its place of rule, and I will take that seat, not to dominate you, but to protect you, to guide you, to become your true support. I also see the deep wounds within you, the words that once tore you apart inside, the betrayals you have never told anyone about, the times you fell and others only watched, even mocked. All of that has accumulated into emotional scars that keep you constantly on guard, unable to trust anyone completely, not even me. You come to me, but part of you still thinks, be careful, or you will be abandoned yet again. I understand. I do not blame you. I know your pain is real and your hurt is deep, and I do not come to tell you, just get over it. I come to sit beside you in that pain, to show you that there is one who does not leave you when you are messy, weak, and broken. When you place that pain into my hands, I can turn it from a bleeding wound into a living testimony. One day, the very thing that once made you burst into tears will become the story you tell to lift someone else up. And your lips will no longer speak only sighs, but will open in thanksgiving. If, even now, you are still patiently staying and listening, that is not by chance. It is I who have drawn you to these words, not to give you one more piece of content to pass the time, but so that you may know I am coming very close to your home, closer than you think. My presence is not a vague concept. It is a reality quietly moving within your heart and in the atmosphere of your household. That sharp twinge you feel when you read a sentence that touches your deepest places, that is not just emotion. It is a sign that my spirit is knocking at the door. Therefore, I do not want you only to hear and then forget, but to respond with actions that are very concrete, very small, yet full of meaning. Right where you are sitting now, whether you are in your own room, in a cafe, or at your work corner, I invite you to whisper to me with your own lips, Lord, I believe that what I cannot do, you are still able to do. I believe that what I have lost, you are still able to restore in your own way. You do not need to speak loudly or use ornate phrases. You only need to be sincere. And if you are on social media, if you have a place where you can express your faith, I encourage you to write down a declaration of faith, not for me to see, for I already know your heart, but so that you yourself can hear which side you are standing on. You might write a sentence like, "Every impossibility in my life is bowing down before the presence of God." When you dare to say that openly, you are pushing back the darkness one more step, because darkness is afraid of confessions that rise from a heart that has begun to believe again. You may say, "But Lord, how many times have I prayed already? I have believed, confessed. I tried to hope. Why has nothing changed?" I can hear the weariness in that question. I know there are prayers you have carried for years, desires you have lifted up and then let go because the waiting felt unbearable. But my child, time does not exhaust me, nor does it weaken my promises. If you measure me by your own clock, you will always think I am late. Yet if you dare to believe that I make all things in due season, you will learn the art of hoping without despairing, of waiting without losing strength. There are things I do not grant immediately, not because I cannot, but because if I were to give them before you are ready, the very blessing would become a burden instead of grace. So today, instead of tearing your heart between believing completely and letting go entirely, let me teach you how to hold on to me little by little. Each morning when you wake, you may say, "Today, I choose to believe that what lies beyond my reach still rests in God's hands." Each time fear rises, replace it with a short whisper, "The Lord is here." Whenever the pain of the past resurfaces, take a deep breath and murmur, "He is healing me." These may seem like small phrases, yet repeated often, they will become bricks, rebuilding the foundation of your faith. And as your heart begins to renew, you will see the outward world shifting too. Doors you thought sealed will begin to move, and paths you believed non-existent will quietly appear. I do not promise you that every problem will vanish overnight, but I promise you something far greater, myself. I promise never to leave you alone in any battle. I promise to be there when you weep and when you laugh, when you work to exhaustion and when you sit in quiet reflection. I promise to keep working in the places you cannot see, speaking to people you cannot reach, turning circumstances you thought unchangeable. And I also promise that when you look back one day, you will smile through tears and say, "If it had not been for the Lord, I could not have come this far." What I thought was the end turned out to be only a comma in His hands. Therefore, my child, do not draw conclusions about your life while I am still writing it. Do not call it beyond repair while I am still able to restore. Do not call it total loss while I can rebuild from the ashes. What others call impossible, what your reason calls impossible, what your experience calls impossible, all those impossibles, when placed before me, must bow down to make way for my will. You need do only one thing: open your heart and let me enter deeper, wider, and more truly into your life. The rest leave to me, for wherever I dwell, impossibility no longer has the final word. My beloved, when all the noise has quieted, when the house sinks into darkness and only a dim light flickers in one small corner, that is when I draw nearest to you. In that space that seems so empty, something wondrous begins to wrap around you, not anxiety, not fear, but a soft, invisible blanket of peace that you can find nowhere else. It is I covering your life with my peace, a peace unshaken by unpaid bills, unanswered messages, or unhealed wounds. You will sense that someone is present in this small, weary room, not to question or condemn, but to comfort and lift you up. In that moment, tears may still glisten on your lashes and questions may still remain, but deep within, you will know I am no longer alone. God is here, and that awareness alone is enough to begin a quiet, yet unshakable transformation within you. When you let me stay, the words you once heard in the Psalms, the verses of living word you once skimmed, will begin to echo differently in your heart and within your home. They will no longer be mere words on a page, but the very breath that fills the air you live in. From the living room to the small kitchen, from the study corner to the bed where you rest your weary body, every narrow space will slowly be infused with gentle reminders that I am your keeper, that I knew you before you were formed, that not one sigh of yours is ever lost. Joy will not return with fireworks, but through the smallest of things, a calmer family meal than yesterday, a heartfelt apology you never thought you'd hear, a spontaneous laugh over something simple that your heavy mind once could not enjoy. From these tiny details you once dismissed, I will cause new life to sprout, stretching out from the barren soil, long dry within your heart and home. I see every wounded place within you, every room in your house that has grown accustomed to the suffocating air of hurt, arguments, silence, and pretending to be fine. Where bitterness once lived, I will make it a place of new meaning. The stories you were too ashamed to mention, I can use them as testimonies for others walking through the same pain. If you allow me to touch them, the tears you hid in dark corners were never wasted. Each one has become a seed I planted, waiting for its season to blossom into compassion, kindness, patience, and deeper faith. My child, I waste nothing that has happened in your life, not your failures, not your mistakes, not your losses. If you hand them to me, I will weave them into a greater tapestry you cannot yet see. And one day, when you look back, you will realize that the places which hurt you most became the very foundations upon which I built what is most precious. The house you live in is not merely four walls, a roof, and some furniture, in my eyes. It is part of the spiritual story I am writing for you. I respect that it is your house. I do not barge in like an intruder. I stand at the door and wait for your invitation. But once you open it and say, Lord, this is my home, but I want it to be yours too, everything begins to change. I enter not as a guest who comes and goes, but as the master who sees even the corners you have long avoided. I will not demolish everything overnight, but I will begin cleaning one corner at a time, clearing away hurtful words, cold silences, and the habits or objects that have kept the door open to darkness. I will rebuild the atmosphere of your home so that when others enter, they cannot explain why they feel lighter and safer. They only know something here is different. That something is my presence today, as the one who created you and whom you call Lord. I speak to you with both love and full authority. I am declaring something new over this house and over your heart. Not a slogan to make you feel momentarily better, but a decree from heaven. The season of merely surviving, of drifting through days, is drawing to a close. I am leading you into a new chapter where the past no longer rules the present, where old wounds no longer dictate how you love and trust. I do not deny what has happened, nor do I demand that you forget it overnight, but I will not allow those things to remain on the throne of your life. From now on, I desire my presence to be the dominant sound echoing through your home, not the dark melodies of guilt, fear, or regret. Therefore, I earnestly call you, do not let your mind keep turning backward, chained to your own shadow. Each time you dig up your past mistakes and torment yourself for old decisions, you give the past a power it no longer deserves. You cannot move forward while your feet remain tangled in yesterday's ropes. I do not deny your pain, but I have come to untie it, not for you to wear it as your identity. My child, when I am here, when I have stepped across the threshold of your home, anything belonging to darkness, destruction, or condemnation loses its right to remain. It may knock on the door. It may try to sneak back in through old thoughts. But if you take my hand and stand with me in prayer and faith, It must retreat. No power can claim what has been dedicated to me. I want you to know that what is coming in your life and your home is not just a few small changes to make things feel better. I am Father, but also King. I do not work carelessly. When I decide to touch a home, I already see the generations that will rise from it, the lives that will be transformed through it. There are promises you thought forgotten that I still hold, waiting for their appointed time. There are doors you never expected, a restored relationship, a new opportunity, a redirection of calling that will begin to open. You may not recognize it at first, for I often begin with what seems ordinary, but if you walk with me, you will understand this is not coincidence. It is part of the plan I have cherished for a long time. You will see me do things beyond what you dared to ask or imagine. Not so you may boast, but so you may know that I am near, real, and alive. Yet all this does not mean you will never tire or stumble again. There will still be days of weakness, nights when you lie awake, wrestling with human fears. But the difference now is this: you will no longer fight alone, and you will no longer fight aimlessly. Each time you feel like giving up, I will use my word, a hymn, a fellow believer, or even a small event to remind you that you are part of a story far greater than you think. I will remind you that what I have begun, I will complete. I do not abandon the work I have started in a heart that stays open to me. What I ask of you is not perfection, but perseverance, though slow. Keep walking, though you fall. Rise again with me. Finally, my child, I want you to remember this as a whisper I write upon the walls of your heart. Your life is not a string of scattered fragments. It is a book being written by my own hand. Every season you pass through, even the ones you wish you could erase from memory, I know. I witness, and I have a way to turn them into something that works for your good if you give me the right to lead you. Every page of your life bears my fingerprints, even the pages where you have thought, surely God is not present here. Today I invite you to sit down with me and open that book again, not to hurt more, but to begin reading it afresh with me, through my eyes. The road ahead is still long. There are still very beautiful chapters you have not yet reached. Do not close the book. Do not fold up your life in disappointment. Let me keep writing, line by line, sentence by sentence, with the ink of grace, of forgiveness, and of new beginnings. And as you keep walking in this house, among the people you love, you will know I am not only the God of some faraway heaven, I am the God of your own home, of your heart, and I will not cease my work until this story fully reveals the love I have for you. My child, I see everything you carry in your heart, the nights you toss and turn and no one understands, the sobs you swallow into your chest so that no one will have to worry, the thoughts that run in circles in your mind until you are exhausted. Not a single tear you shed falls without my notice. Not a single sigh of yours escapes my attention. The things you dare not tell anyone, the things you think you have buried so deep, are precisely the places I touch with the greatest gentleness. You think you are alone in the storm, but I am there, right beside your bed, in that house that seems so silent. I am not distant, not cold in the face of the chaos you are going through. I am simply waiting for the moment you are willing to let your heart slip out of its hard shell, so that I may truly step in and begin to transform every hidden corner within you. Take courage once I intervene. Nothing will remain as it was. Not even the dark corners you have long accepted as part of your normal. You have lived for so long in a heavy atmosphere that you have come to think it is simply how things are, waking up already tired, going to bed with a weighted head, meals passing in silence, rooms full of belongings yet empty of peace. You assume that this is your fate, the kind of life you must resign yourself to for the rest of your days. But when I begin to renew, That atmosphere will change. In the place once filled with groans, complaints, and criticism, I will sow words of thanksgiving, wholesome speech, and conversations that truly listen. The corners of your home you do not dare look at because they stir up memories of failure, shame, or collapse, I will turn into places where you linger longer in astonishment at how I have turned things around. Even in the deepest part of your soul, the place you have labeled awful, ruined, beyond repair, the place you feel ashamed even to think about, I will establish my presence there, turning what was once considered scrap into the foundation for something radiant. The things I whispered to you in the early days when you first knew me, the promises you once clung to but then quietly put away because you waited so long and saw nothing, I have not forgotten. In my time, those words will not lie dormant in your memory, but like dry seeds watered, they will rise, take root, and put forth shoots in the midst of your real, everyday life. But you need to understand, this renewal does not come like a layer of makeup brushed over the surface. I do not work by making a few minor adjustments so you can feel a little less miserable. I heal from the very roots, and that sometimes means touching exactly the places where you hurt the most. I will lay my hand on the memories you have tried so hard to lock away, not to drag you back into torment, but to bring you to face them one last time, this time not in loneliness, but in my arms. I will shine my light on every word, every event, every glance that has planted in you those toxic beliefs. You are nothing. You are only a burden. You are not worthy of love. I will show you how those sentences have become a hidden voice inside you, directing the way you see yourself and the way you see me. Then, little by little, I will uproot them and replace them with my voice. You are precious. You are desired. You are not forsaken. That process may make you burst into tears, may make you feel as if everything is shaking, but that is not collapse. It is the dismantling of crooked walls so that a solid house can be built again. My child, when I am present, whatever has rotted, no matter how much you love it or regret it, can no longer rule. I do not choke you, but my light compels everything that belongs to the darkness to show its face. Relationships that only drain your strength and drag your faith down will gradually reveal their true nature. Habits that have seemed harmless but are actually withering, your soul will no longer be able to hide. You will begin to sense that you can no longer rest easy in the places you once used to escape. The pointless conversations, the content you consume just to forget the emptiness, the choices that numb your conscience. That restlessness does not mean you have become more difficult. It means I am rousing you from a heavy sleep. Wherever I am welcomed, darkness cannot roam casually. The lying voices that have long echoed in your mind will grow faint as you give room for my word to resound. I will not shout in your face, but with gentle persistence I will bring truth back to its place of leadership, so that your emotions, thoughts, and decisions are no longer dragged along by fear or shame, but are guided by the light. There are areas where you have declared, "It's over. There is no saving this." Yet I see them as the starting point of a rebuilding. You look at a fractured marriage, I see an opportunity to display the power of patience and forgiveness. You look at a distant, cold child, I see the journey on which you will be taught to love without demanding, to pray without giving up. You examine yourself in the light of countless mistakes and conclude that you are nothing more than a collection of failures. I see a story which, once healed, will become a stream of comfort for many who are floundering just as you are now. I do not wait for you to become okay before I come. What moves me is when you bring all your weakness, confusion, and ugliness and confess, "I surrender. I cannot fix myself. Please do what you desire." It is then that I begin to weave each thread back together, to mend every tear in the fabric of your life, not through a sudden miracle that erases every trace, but through a daily, steady, patient process. I know there have been times when you were fired up to change and then collapsed halfway. You have promised to change and then failed to keep your word. So now you are afraid even to tell me what you long for. You blame yourself, label yourself a promise breaker, and so you stand still, afraid to move forward and unwilling to turn back. But you forget that I do not count the number of times you fall in order to condemn you. I look to see whether this time you will dare to take my hand and rise differently. To me, what matters is not a flawless record, but an honest heart willing to say, I am weak, but I do not want to be far from you. You do not need to act strong for me. Do not need to prove that you deserve to be helped. If all you can manage is to whisper, I want to believe, you can still do something new in me. But I'm afraid of being disappointed again. I will receive even that sentence and use it as a seed of hope to begin nurturing. Give me permission to step into even the drawers you have marked no one may open. It may be a face you are not yet willing to forgive, an action you have not dared to confess, an area of your life you still want to control. I do not break down doors, but I will knock steadily, day after day, through small stirrings in your heart, through words you happen to hear, through passages of my word that seem by chance to touch the exact place. When you trust me enough to hand me the key, you will see that everything does not collapse as you feared. You will discover that every small decision in the direction of obedience, an apology spoken, a step away from temptation, one courageous moment of saying enough to what is old, enlarges the space for me to work. At first, these things may seem to affect only your personal life, but in reality they are changing the very course of the current that runs through your household. The atmosphere grows lighter, words become kinder, eyes grow less defensive, because truth never stays confined to a single heart. It always carries a power to spread. And one day, you will look at the people who have hurt you most with different eyes, not the eyes of a victim anymore, but the gaze of one who has experienced renewal, the child who once shouted back at you, the relative whose words once left you numb, the friend who turned away when you needed them most. All those faces, in my hands, can still become part of a story of restoration. It may not be tomorrow. The journey may be very long. But when I touch a life, even the hardest heart can soften. The one who once was the source of your wounds may yet kneel beside you in a choked-up prayer. What today is still an unspeakable pain will one day become a testimony that makes others tremble as they realize how alive I truly am. You will tell it not to show how well you endured, but to honor the one who lifted you up from the ashes. My beloved child, your future is not sealed shut by the mistakes you have made. It is opened by my hand, the hand of the one who patiently walks with you step by step. I do not paint over the marks of the past. I wash them clean, then use those very places as footholds for others to grasp as they step out of their own darkness. The recurring cycles you fear, the patterns of brokenness, the forms of downfall that have repeated across generations, are not an unbreakable chain. I can cut across that flow right in your own life if you are willing to stand and say, I do not want this to be passed on to the next generation. When you accept that place, I will use you as a boundary line behind you. The old patterns come to a stop. Before you, a new stream of light, peace, and blessing begins to flow for your family. Everything I say to you is not just a nice-sounding promise that will fade away. I am inviting you to live a true life, where each day you learn to become aware that I am present in every room you walk through, in every decision you make, in every word you speak. There will still be days when you stumble, mornings when you wake up with a heavy heart. But what is different is this: You will no longer slip straight into the abyss of despair as you did before. Deep within, you will know that there is one who is quietly at work, arranging, reshaping, preparing the way. You will learn to grow familiar with talking with me in the midst of the smallest tasks, while washing the dishes, while driving, while folding clothes, while watching your loved ones moving back and forth in the house. You will ask, "Lord, what are you doing in me and in my home today?" And I will let you notice my fingerprints in details that seem insignificant, an argument that softens more quickly, a hug that once felt rare, a door that suddenly opens, a strange, gentle peace that flows in at the very moment you need it. As you walk with me in that quiet yet persistent way, the day will come when you look back and no longer recognize yourself or your household as it once was, not because every difficulty has disappeared, but because you have allowed me to take the lead. The old things that once ruled you will gradually give way. Darkness will no longer have a legal place to dwell, and lying voices will no longer be allowed to define who you are. Instead, my presence, my grace, and my truth will become the very atmosphere you breathe. Then you, who once thought you were nothing but a failure, will become a living invitation for other weary hearts. You will look at them, those who are sitting in the darkness just as you once did, and with a gentle confidence you will say, "I was once drowning in that very place, but when I let him step in, everything truly stopped being the same." This is what I cherish for you, not as a beautiful idea, but as a reality I am leading you into day by day. If you will keep your hand in mine and not let go. Today I come to whisper to you a secret I have long held in my heart. The tears you shed that night, and on so many other nights, were never meaningless. In the spiritual realm, your tears do not fall to the ground and disappear. They fall into my hands, and I turn them into seeds. Every sob, every time you said, "I cannot bear this anymore, but I am still clinging to you," was a seed sown into the field of faith in the middle of the night. You may have thought you were only collapsing, but in heaven's view, you were sowing in weariness, sowing in loneliness, sowing in despair, and yet still turning toward me. I have seen every time you chose not to turn your back on me, even when your mind was full of why, and I have engraved each of those choices. Now it is time for me to tell you that the harvest of those tears is drawing near. The stretch of time that has felt endlessly long was not an empty, meaningless gap, but a season in which the soil was being softened. The roots of faith were quietly going deeper, so that when I cause the shoots to spring up, you will not be uprooted by the wind. My child, I see through every hidden corner you have never dared to share with anyone. I know well the deepest fears in your heart, the fear of losing the ones you love, the fear of waking up one day to find yourself utterly alone, the fear of being abandoned, of being replaced. I see those moments when you look at your loved ones and, for no obvious reason, anxiety grips you, because simply imagining losing them makes your heart tighten. I also hear the whispers you have never dared to say out loud. If only I could disappear for a while, not die, but just vanish from all this pressure, from these expectations, from these responsibilities that feel too heavy for me to carry. You think these thoughts are sinful, so you try to bury them. But I have not come to condemn you for that. I have come to hold you to embrace both the strong and the weak parts of you, the you that is full of faith and the you that trembles in doubt. I want you to know that I did not create you only to leave you struggling alone in the midst of these fears. I am the one who witnesses every panic that rises inside you that no one else can see. I am the one who hears your heart cry, "I am so tired, Lord," even when your lips have not yet formed the words. And I want to etch this deeply into your mind. I will never let go of your hand. Even if you let go of me, even if you are angry, accusing, or silent toward me, I am still there. I do not abandon you when you lose your way, and I do not abandon you when you fall because of your own wrong choices. I step into the dark places where you are ashamed of yourself, not to point an accusing finger, but to lead you out of them. You do not need to live in fear that one more mistake will make me leave. My love for you is not that fragile. I have already given my very life for you. Do you really think anything in this world could make me change my mind about you? The victory I promise you is not just a slogan to inspire you for a moment. It is a reality I am gradually bringing you into. You imagine victory as a dazzling moment when everything suddenly turns around. Sometimes it is like that. But more often, the victory I give in your life is like the dawn. It does not come with a lightning bolt, but with light slowly spreading after a long night. I am releasing change over your life from the inside out. The invisible chains that make you repeat old habits, old patterns of thinking, old reactions are being loosened by me. Link by link, you will begin to notice yourself thinking differently, feeling differently, choosing differently. What you once considered normal you will no longer accept. What you once thought you could never do will suddenly become possible as I strengthen you. This is not you simply being more positive. It is me transforming the very roots within you. At the same time, I am also preparing people who will step into your life as living answers to old prayers you thought had been forgotten. They may be a friend, a mentor, a companion, a fellow believer, or someone you would never expect, but they will come at the right time, with the right words and the exact support you need. There were times you prayed, Lord, give me someone who understands me, someone who will walk with me, someone so I don't have to fight alone anymore. Then, because the waiting felt too long, you stopped mentioning it. But I did not overlook those whispers. I am arranging, connecting, and moving people in places you cannot see, so that at the right moment, they will appear before your eyes like a familiar stranger. Someone you will later recognize as the very answer I had prepared all along. I do not forget, my child. I am not a distant God who sometimes remembers and sometimes forgets like human beings do. Every word I have promised, I have both the power and the determination to fulfill. The path toward the day of fulfillment may leave you tired and confused. There may even be stretches where you feel as though I am silent. But silence does not mean I have given up. Silence is often when I am doing my greatest work in the places you cannot see. I am patiently waiting for you to grow a little more, placing more strength in your spirit, healing the deep hidden places in your heart, so that when the promise becomes reality, you will not be overwhelmed, nor will you misuse the blessing. I am a father, and I always know what timing is best for you, not merely what is fastest. Now, if there is any part of you, even just a little, that believes your prayers have not vanished, that the things you have whispered to me are still being held in my heart and are about to become reality in the way I choose, I invite you to do something very small yet very important. Right where you are, write down a simple expression of gratitude. It does not need to be long or poetic. It only needs to be sincere. You might say, "Thank you, Lord, that you still hear me," or "Thank you that my tears are not in vain," or simply, "Thank you that you have never left me." When you write it, you are not just typing words, you are setting a stone of remembrance on the path of your faith journey. You are saying to yourself, to me, and even to the darkness that has whispered in your ear that prayer doesn't matter, that you choose to believe differently. You choose to believe that I am at work. You choose to believe that my word is true. And I promise you, there is not a single word of thanks that rises from the depths of your heart that I do not hear. not a single flicker of faith that I do not treasure. Let today's gratitude become the doorway that opens into the new things I will continue to do in your life and in your very home. In this very moment, as your heart is opening before me, bring every breath, every thought, every burden to me through the following sincere prayers. Almighty God, I come before you with a heart still full of confusion and wounds. Yet I believe that it is you who have called me into this moment. I lift up to you my home, every room, every meal, every conversation, every heavy silence that I have been trying to endure for so long. Please come in and cleanse the gloomy atmosphere, the harsh words, the cold looks that have unknowingly hurt one another. Please break every invisible deadlock that is binding my family, the cycles of repeated arguments, misunderstandings, and distance that we cannot escape on our own. I know that heaven has a plan for my household, but sometimes we are so unclear, so weak, and no longer have the strength to hold on. Please give me the courage to be the first to kneel and pray, the first to say, I'm sorry, the first to speak blessing instead of judgment. Place your presence at the very center of my home, so that from now on we will no longer live like lost strangers under the same roof, but become a family that knows you are walking with us, healing us, and guiding us in all things. Good Father, you who see every path I have walked and every tear I have ever hidden, today I draw near to you and open before you every dark corner of my heart. I confess that many times I have misunderstood your silence. I thought you had abandoned me, so I closed my heart, no longer daring to hope or to ask for anything great. Please forgive me for the times I have told myself that prayer makes no difference, that my home will always be this way, that my life cannot change. Father, please touch the layers of doubt, discouragement, and fear of being hurt that are covering my soul, so that once again I can dare to believe that you are still at work, still drawing a path for me even in the days that seem the darkest. Teach me to remain in your presence, not to seek solutions apart from you, not to escape reality through empty distractions, but to learn how to sit still and allow heaven to touch my heart. May you turn this very moment into a new beginning, where I step out of my old ways of thinking and take hold of the future you are preparing for me. O Lord Jesus, you who once entered the house of Zacchaeus and transformed his whole life, today I pray that you will also graciously visit my home. I bring before you all the hidden corners I still keep concealed, the unspoken resentments, the apologies I still owe my loved ones, the long-standing wounds that have never been tended to. Please step into my family meals, so that our time at table is not just about finishing our food, but becomes a place where we learn to listen, to understand, and to support one another. Please enter my bedroom, where I toss and turn with so many worries and fears, and place upon it the peace that surpasses all understanding. Please come into even our online conversations, the content we listen to and watch each day, and cleanse away all that is wearing down our faith and our purity of heart. Lord, I beg you not merely to pass by, but to stay, to remain, to dwell deeply in my home, so that my house may become a little heaven, a point of contact where heaven touches the earth. Please grant that each member of my family may recognize your presence, even if they do not yet know how to call your name. And please use my own life as a small sign of your love within these walls. O Almighty God, I bow my head in thanksgiving to you, for even when I thought I was alone, you were quietly walking with me and protecting me. I thank you for the very ordinary moments in which I failed to recognize your hand, the times I escaped an accident by chance, the times I received a word of encouragement at just the right moment, the times someone appeared to help me when I was convinced there was no one left by my side. I thank you for not abandoning me when I was weak of heart, for not rejecting me when I doubted, for not growing weary of me when I fell back into my old habits. I recognize that it is your patience and gentleness that have kept me until this very day, so that now I can hear heaven's call for my household. Please make my heart always sensitive and alert to recognize and give thanks for the small things you do each day, so that I no longer live like someone who carelessly walks past the gentle miracles you scatter along every step I take. O loving Father, I give you thanks, for even the darkness in my life does not lie outside your good and holy plan. I thank you for the times you allowed me to walk through spiritual dryness so that I might learn to cling to you instead of leaning on fragile, temporary supports. I thank you for the closed doors that saved me from dangerous dead ends, even though at the time I could only cry in disappointment. I thank you for the relationships you allowed me to lose, so that I would not be drawn far from your will. I thank you for the times you corrected and disciplined me through failures, so that I might become less proud and more willing to listen. Looking back, I can clearly see the imprint of your hand on every stretch of the journey, and I understand that without your preserving grace, I would no longer be here to pray and give thanks as I do now. Please grant that from this day forward I may not only give thanks when all goes well, but also offer you thanksgiving in the very midst of trials, because I believe that you are using everything to mold me and prepare me for something greater that lies ahead. I offer this prayer in the holy name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may build a strong and vibrant community of faith.